Hi guys, today I'll be informing the audience how NBA strategies on offense and defense have changed over time. The three-point shot is more heavily utilized, teams are taking more efficient shots on offense, and yet defense has never been better. In 1979, the NBA instituted the three-point line. That year, teams took 2.8 shots per game from three. That's not a lot. Fast forward to 2025, which is this past season, teams took 37 three-point shots per game. So you might be wondering why it took so long for the NBA to figure out that three is more than two. I've been watching the NBA and playing basketball for my whole life, and additionally, I've studied the strategies on basketball extensively. I will utilize shooting percentages, rule changes, and league averages to show the transition between the styles of basketball played then and now. The offensive schemes utilized in professional basketball have featured the three-point line more heavily because of changes in the defense and how shooters have improved over the course of the league existing. Since our school is located in the birthplace of basketball, I figured this would be a great topic for us all to focus on. So the NBA's illegal defense rule made man defense more prevalent. That is when the man on defense is assigned to guard one man on offense. The O's represent the offensive player, the X's represent the defensive player. So as you can see, this defender's on this man, this defender's on this man, this defender on this one, this guy on this one, this defender on this one. When this was lifted, defenses improved and offenses struggled, leading to the dead ball era of the 2000s, which is what it's called. You'll find out why in a second. The three-point shot became more prevalent to help offenses stretch the defense and bring them farther out in an era where defenders were faster, stronger, and more skilled than ever. So, the NBA's illegal defense rule had a drastic impact on scoring. The illegal defense rule restricted players from moving away from a player they were guarding on defense. So if this guy is guarding this man, he can only move so far away. The 3-foot rule is an example of this. Defenders were required to stay within 3 feet of their assignment, right? So this meant that help defense was essentially illegal. 2-point shots, post-ups, and fadeaways became the go-to shots on offense. They were easy to isolate when opposing defenders couldn't help off their man. So if the point guard's here and he throws the ball into him, this guy cannot come help. This guy cannot come help. It's just one-on-one. So you see a ton of bigs like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, feast in the paint, and of course for a time, Shaq, right? So you get the ball to this guy right here. This defender can't come and help out. This defender can't come up and help out. He's got all this space here. Same thing over here. The ball goes to this offensive player. This defender has no help. So zone defense under these rules is illegal because zone defense is when a coach assigns each player to cover a specific area of the court. That's from masterclass.com. So zone defense, you see the defenders are right around here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he covers this area of the court. He covers this area of the court. Same thing, same thing, same thing. And if offensive players move, they then move to cover their zone. Pardon me. They do not move. The assignment would move. So if this guy moves over here, he becomes this guy's assignment. This player moves over here, it becomes this guy's assignment. Teams scored a ton of points per game because defense is hampered by the rules and possessions or pace is high. So when I say pace, I mean the number of possessions a team has per game. So if the pace is 90, that means a team gets 90 possessions a game. And when I say points going forward, I mean the number of points a team scores per game. So if I say points were 100, that means each team was scoring 100 points per game on average that year. So with offense producing tons of points and defense is stagnating, the league turns towards new rules to open up the game on the defensive end. Side note, pace was consistently in the hundreds during the 70s and 80s, according to basketballreference.com. So 100 possessions per game. They're moving fast, they're flying down the court. The changing of the defensive rules made offensive production plummet and allowed for defensive strategies to flourish. NBA changed rules on what constituted illegal defense going into the 2001 season. The changes created the 3-second violation, preventing defenders from standing in the paint too long when not guarding anyone. So even if you're in a zone, if this guy was not guarding anyone, he can't just stand here all day. He's got to have at least 1 foot outside the paint. Which of course, if this guy were to drive in, that means he would be over here instead of here. So that's of course to prevent bigs from just camping in the paint and blocking anybody who tries to get a layup. Excuse me. 3-second violations created. Most importantly, it meant that all existing illegal defensive guidelines would be eliminated. That's from ESPN.com. So without restrictions on defensive coverage, teams began to innovate on defense. This includes one of the greatest coaches of all time, 11-time NBA champion Phil Jackson, who said, "We will have a zone," and also said, "Everybody will," when coaching the Lakers in 2001 during the onset of these rules. Now, maybe the most important part about these rules is that teams began to use man and zone looks. So when you came down the court, you didn't know if they were going to set up in their zone or if they were going to set up in the man look, and this made playing offense a lot more difficult because you didn't know what defense you're going to be getting the whole time. So points per game and pace dropped as a result as teams struggled to find a solution on offense. According to BasketballReference.com, pace was in the low 90s throughout the early 2000s. Points per game fell from 97 to 94 during the 2000 season. Wouldn't cross back over 100 until 2008. Just for reference, guys, points per game was over 100, oftentimes around 110, from 1957 to 1995. The league saw the greatest scoring drought in 40 years soon after instituting these rules. So defenses are dominating, despite the fact that teams are more skilled than ever. The league has just as many stars, teams are just as skilled as ever, the game is improving, but they score less points than they did 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So the three-point shot allowed teams to stretch the defense, create opportunities on offense, and increase scoring. Three-point attempts sat around 13 in the early 2000s, steadily increasing to 16 in 2005. It wasn't until the 2008 season that it increased to 18 per game, the highest ever. In 2012, we saw an increase from 18 to 20 attempts per game, the largest one-year jump we had seen since the 1994 to 1995 season. Points per game also saw a huge jump from 2004 to 2005, going from 93 to 97. That's a whole 4-point jump. But didn't cross 100 again until 2008, like I said before, after the largest three-point explosion since the 90s. As three-point shots increased, scoring increased. Three-point attempts have not dropped below 20 since 2008, and points have not dropped under 100 since 2013. Three-point shots have gone from 20 in 2013 to 37 per game that I mentioned earlier in 2025. Points per game peaked at 117 in 2025. That's a lot of points. It means you turn an NBA game last year, on average, they scored 117 points. The most since 1967. The league turned into the three-point shot at a historic rate, has subsequently increased scoring at historic levels. Excuse me. Three-point shots are farther away from the basket. The ability to make them causes defenses trouble. Defenses having to stray further away from the basket makes zone defense harder to play, as the area they have to cover is farther out. So you see, I've got the zone here. I've got all the players inside the arc. This is how they used to do it. This is how they teach you when you're a little kid, when people can't really shoot threes as well. But if you're setting up a zone nowadays, you got to be out here, because there's a lot of players. If a player's standing right here in today's NBA, he's a threat to shoot, especially most point guards and shooting guards. He's a threat to shoot. So they got to play up here. So the zone really is up here. That they would be standing probably right outside the arc, which of course leaves a bit more room here and here once these guys are about. So you stretch the defense just by nature of being able to shoot the three-point shot, and obviously that opens things up on the interior. So the ability to shoot from distance offers less counters to the pick and roll, encouraging switching, which can create mismatches. So if this player has the ball and this player goes to set a screen, right? He sets a screen here, and this guy comes in here. Now, this player is usually going to switch on to this guy. However, you can use that because if this player is a worse defender than this player, now you've got a good defender, a good offensive player on a bad defensive player. So you can create mismatches much easier in the zone because switching is part of it, as I said before. They switch assignments all the time. And being able to shoot the three means that drop coverage is in play. Because sometimes if you get screened, right, either you switch, which means this guy will guard this guy. Sometimes this guy stays on this player, so he would come up here to guard this guy. I know it's a little convoluted here. Sometimes this player would drop. So this player goes to come in, he goes under the screen and sets up right here, right? And sets up here to stop the player from coming in and doing whatever he wants here. The problem is you can't drop as well because if you drop, there's nobody here. So he's going to get right here, he's going to stop, and he's going to shoot the ball. And if you're giving point guards and shooting guards wide open threes in today's NBA, they're going to make it. So it becomes much harder to defend the offense, and that's why we saw from the early 2000s, defenses are dominating, but then later, offenses begin dominating, despite the fact that defenses are better than ever, bigger, stronger, more skilled than ever, because they're so good at shooting the ball and so good at moving the ball, it becomes almost impossible to guard. So now we arrive at the present where offenses are incredible. They score 110 points regularly, and they shoot the three almost 40 times a night. It's probably going to be 40 soon, realistically. So the NBA's pace and scoring was high for decades, providing an entertaining product. Then they pivoted to allowing teams to play defense in a multitude of different ways through the rule changes. Despite offenses struggling for a time, we eventually saw NBA offenses deal with the problem by creating new offensive strategies with the three-point shot at the center of it. Basketball is only thought of as an individual, star-driven sport. However, the strategies utilized by each team are just as complex as any other team sport.